143. Psalm 143. Patty, are you ready for a new year? Very good. New year. Clean slate. I usually don't make a big deal out of New Year's resolutions and that kind of deal, but I find myself this year setting some goals, more than typical. It's a new year, 366 days this year. This is a leap year. So 366 days, 8,784 hours, 527,000 and so minutes, and if you care, 31.62 million seconds. Isn't that weird? Just tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Time keeps on marching. The old Steve Miller song. Time keeps on ticking into the future. It's always very poignant time for me when we're around someone's last few hours. I have a good friend in Ohio, and his grandmother is apparently ready to cross, seeing things that aren't there. Angels, whatever. I think all of us have heard stories of like that kind of deal. But it's always a very poignant time when death of a body happens, but release of a soul happens at the same time. We don't pay much attention to time. We really don't. We're all given the same amount. Everybody has the same amount of math. We don't know when our time is up, as the phrase goes. But it's just a weird thing, and all of a sudden, that which has animated your body, your soul, which has animated your physical body for decades, is now stopped, and time has stopped, and yet we know by our spirit that is within us, and then within Scripture, that we don't stop. And so time is just unique. So I want to pay some attention to a new year today. Before we look at Psalm 143, I'm going to read this passage from Psalm 139. But you stay there, 143. On your outline is New Year's is a time for inventory and analysis. Inventory and analysis. My brother is a manager of a big office machinery supply company, a couple $1 million in sales per month. So his warehouse has a large turnover, and there's inventory time. At the end of each fiscal year, there's inventory time. And during that, it's a month, and during that month, he lives about 2.5, 3 counties away from work, drives 90 miles one way. So during that month, he just stays down there. He gets a long-term hotel deal, resident deal, and he just stays there because he's doing 18, 19, sometimes 20 hours a day of inventory. And it's just a long, laborious, intentional process. I think it'd be good for us every once in a while to take inventory of what we have going on in front of us. The big picture, inventory-wise, is we just touched a little bit on when that song Amazing Grace was playing. Mason and I touched a little bit on it. It is amazing. The big picture is we are born into a world of sin. We then participate in sin, which is missing the mark. Some of us intentionally screw up. Some of us don't, but no matter how good, my wife reminds us, no matter how good you are, you need Jesus. And no matter how ridiculous we may be, we who claim Jesus have Jesus. We need a lawyer, we have one. That's the big picture. Take inventory as you come up short. He covers us with His grace. That's the big inventory. And another good thing is that we live in this country. We're born here. Most of us are born here. Some of us may. I don't know. Anybody immigrate here? Okay. I know my grandparents did, but we're born in this country. And so we have inventory. Part of our world is we live in a pretty good country. where there's ideas of freedom, right? We have freedom of movement type deal. So that's part of our inventory. But our spiritual inventory is that we have Jesus, okay? And analysis, analyze where we are, what's going on. Psalm 139 is a great psalm. It's a psalm that's used quite a bit here in this month. Here in about 3 weeks, there will be a gathering down in D.C. Against abortion, and to be pro-life. And in this psalm, there's a lot about life and how he has woven us together. And it's just a powerful passage about pro-life. I want us to look at verses, if you're there, 23 and 24. Search me, O God. Psalm 139, 23. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Test me. I've had trouble with my hearing last couple years. I've had 2 hearing tests just in the last few weeks, new hearing aids, yada, yada. Testing is involved. And with testing, you come before an expert and they discover and then inform you what the deal is. This psalmist is asking God to test me. Let me come before you with your template of perfection, with who you are as a perfect God. Test me, see where I am, and let me know where my flaws are, that you and I can work on them. Let me do an inventory of what's going on with my discipleship. Well, this would be a good time for that. At the start of a new year, and kind of hunker down, and like, all right, here's what I want to do. I want to become a better Christian. I want to become, Bill's talking about, I want to be a better mouthpiece. I want you to give me more courage, and just let us speak is like truth to power was the big phrase a few years back. I just want us to look at folks and say, this is the situation. Everybody's sharing their opinions online. How about you share what God's opinion is? Let me know where I stand. So he says, search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me. And then what? And then lead me in the way everlasting. So I want to take inventory of what's going on, and then I want you to lead me. Not just inform me. I want to follow your GPS. I really want to look at Psalm 143, and let's start with verse 7. Psalm 143, verse 7. It's a prayer of petition. It's a prayer of request. It's a lesser coming to a greater. All the prayers that Jesus prayed, I'm not real smart about the Greek and the structure and all that, but I've learned that all the prayers that Jesus prayed, there's a term for it that I'm forgetting. There's a prayer there. The prayer is a request from the prayer to God, and it's an equal situation. Jesus is equal in this format. Every other prayer, including this one from the Psalms, is a lesser requesting from a greater. Does that make sense? So you have a underling making this request from the supervisor. Answer me quickly, verse 7, 143:7. Answer me quickly, O Lord, my spirit fails. Do not hide your face from me. Don't leave me, I need you. Or I will be like one of those going down to the pit. What's that, the old hymn? I need thee every hour. Oh, how I need thee. Right? Dependence doesn't flow in our culture. Yeah, we're self-independent. No, we're not. Let the morning bring me word of your unfailing love, for I have put my trust in you. All chips in you. Show me the way I should go, for to you I lift up my soul. Show me the way in this new year. Rescue me from my enemies, O Lord, for I hide myself in you. You ever been bullied in school? We had a kid I won't go into the details, doesn't matter. We had a kid that, too old, we were too old for, there was a kid picking on this other kid, Dwayne. And poor Dwayne, we're in 10th grade. And Dwayne's being picked on for something Dwayne had no control over, his last name. And this other guy was just picking on this guy, picking on him, picking on him, picking on him. And it was pathetic to watch this bullying going on at that age for something. Rescue me from my enemies. The guy that was picking on Dwayne, his last name was Kennedy. Kennedy was picking on Dwayne. Rescue me from Kennedy. He said, somebody help me. This is stupid. Well, we're being tossed around. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood. For I hide myself in you. I get to hide around Big Dad. Teach me to do your will, for you are my God. May your good spirit lead me on level ground. There's a passage of scripture that talks that if you follow God, he makes his path straight before you, right? Another good psalm. For your name's sake, O Lord, preserve my life. In your righteousness, bring me out of trouble. So there is a inventory and analysis that goes on. Ben Franklin, I've kind of updated the terminology. Ben Franklin had a quote about time. We all have these same seconds, same minutes as we go through each day. He had a quote that says, do you love your life? Then don't waste time. Because it's the stuff of which life is made. You see a big quilt. Lynn made a quilt for little Henry. Spent hours and hours and hours, one stitch at a time, right? Mosaic, one tile at a time, one day at a time, 1 hour at a time. You build your life upon the rock, for the wise man builds his house upon the rock. Spend your time wisely. Secondly, New Year is a time for hope. A time for hope. John Wesley, late 1700s, big Methodist preacher. John Wesley said, whether this be my last year or not, may it be the best year of my life. I like that. And I'm 63. I've had 63. I don't know, this might be my last one. May be the best one. Well, determined by what? Growth, maturity, fruit. We want good fruit. Time. Look at, if you would, turn to Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 11. And that's way back there. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. I'll let you get there. Deuteronomy chapter 11. We'll talk a little bit about hope. I was talking downstairs. There is an experiment that was done, and I forget what institution did it, but there was an experiment on lab mice, and they were put into a container of water, and the experiment was to see how long they would swim before they gave up and drowned. And so I forget all the details, but the gist of it is very powerful. Right as they were going down for the last time, then a technician would bring them up and save them and not let them drown. They let those mice recover, good food, good rest, and some days later, whatever, they repeated the exact same experiment, put them in the same container of water, let them swim, see right before they just gave up. And if I remember right, the second time, after being saved from the first time, they swam 7%, 700%, 7 times longer than the first time. Because they had a sense of hope. A sense of hope. How many times we've talked about medical world, cancer situations, they have hope. And they work because of the hope, and things work. Hope is very critical. Hope, little definition for your outline there. The assurance about the present, as well as the future. You have a hope. To be hopeless is not good. To be full of hope is very good. So hope is at least one of the definitions, assurance about the present as well as about the future. Deuteronomy 11. Now, I'm going to speak directly to my college guys who we all kind of listen to each other. And I'll speak to you folks. I know hermeneutically, that's a fancy word, and I know expositorily, another fancy word, I know that the import of this passage was to Old Covenant people, to Old Testament people, Israel specifically, to a very specific people group, to a land, a specific territory, geography, zip code that they were headed. I know that it was to the Israelites as they're about to go to the Holy Land. I get that. And yet you can also glean a principle from that. I'm not saying that we are the new Israel. I'm not saying that we're going to have promised land as property. I'm not promising wealth. I'm just saying that the same God who was with those people is with us, correct? And we have gone from one land of Egypt, metaphorically, of being captive to sin. We're heading now into a promised land of freedom. And when we cross the Jordan River, metaphorically, when we cross that Jordan River, we'll go into the promised land. In the meantime, we have some great property that we're in a spiritual way. Agree? So with that lens, with that thought in mind, Deuteronomy 11, verse 11. Deuteronomy 11:11. But the land you are crossing the Jordan to take, where you're going to take possession of, is the land of mountains and valleys. It's not just flat and boring. And also, we have mountaintop experiences and we have valleys. We have good times and we have hard times. So that you can learn from that. It's a land of mountains and valleys. Look at the poetry here. That drinks rain from heaven. What a sentence. The place that we're gathering, and the church, the group right here, I'm looking at us, like Vanderbilt, this is a place that drinks nourishment from heaven. God established the church. Our forefathers in the faith in this region established this congregation. And we drink nourishment from heaven itself by way of His Word, by way of His Spirit, and by way of each other. We're in a good promised land. We're going there. Verse 12, it is the land that the Lord your God cares for. He's not passive. He's not absent. He cares about this place. There's maintenance, if you will. There's productivity from this place that He cares for. The eyes of the Lord your God are continually on it. God's watching. God is watching could be a scary thing. God is watching is a very positive, reassuring thing. God knows what's going on. God knows exactly what's going on. I don't want to get too far in the weeds and I don't want to get too personal, but some of the nightmare we went through 15, whatever years ago it was, at a previous situation. It got down to the point, does anybody know what is really going on? Does anybody know the truth about this equation that we're in? And Lynn and I, we really got to the point where we just looked at each other and said, I know, you know, and God knows. And if that's the only three that know, that's enough. And it wasn't a super horrible situation. It was no fun, but it was not direct bloody persecution. But it was just a quagmire of misinformation, lies, and power games. And we didn't want to. God knows. We took such comfort in the fact that God knows, and there were some other people that knew, but the details, it was mind-boggling. And sometimes life is overwhelming. It's one of these valleys. Yeah, it is overwhelming, but you're not alone. And God knows what's going on. That's very, very, very reassuring to me. And I know to others. His eyes are continually on it from the beginning of the year to the end. Now, you may think, Mike, you may think structurally, I just went to a concordance and typed in or looked up year. I didn't do that. Like, because this is a kickoff a new year. I had no idea year was in this sentence, but it fits perfect. His eyes are on us continually from the beginning of the year to its end. Hey, basically all the time. All the time, all the time. God is watching. That's pretty cool. Gives me hope. And then lastly, the new year is a time for new beginnings. Philippians 3:13, Paul. It's about 2/3 of the way through the Philippian letter. And Paul kind of does this vision casting to the people of Philippi, it's a town. And he does this vision casting to them. And he says, listen, I want to get to perfection. I want to know the power of his resurrection. I want to see that kind of power. I want to get there. Now, you would think that my credentials could get me there. And so he lists, prior to this passage, he lists, I'm all that. I had the best rabbi as a trainer. I'm from the tribe. I'm not just a Jew. I'm from the tribe of Benjamin, which is, I guess, pretty stout tribe to be from. He lists all his credentials, and boom, boom, boom. I'm a citizen of Rome, and I have all that. He says, I look at as rubbish. That does nothing for me. But what I have is this dream of being in the presence of God. I want to know. In the meantime, I just want to know the power of his resurrection. In the meantime, I forget what lies behind, and I strive for the future. So that's what we want to do. We don't want to completely forget what we learned last year, because there's wisdom to look back, take inventory. But the green light we have for what's ahead of us. It's awesome. And just looking at some of the new stuff from Scripture. God will make all things new, Revelation 21. We will sing a new song, Psalm 33. Give us a new name, Isaiah 62. A new spirit within, Ezekiel 11. A new heart, Ezekiel 18. A new covenant, Matthew 26. A new heaven and a new earth, Revelation 21. And what I like, that we're a new creation. The old is gone, the new has come. Oh my. And then last, we'll be changed in a flash, in the twinkling of an eye. There's more and more talk that I'm picking up of rapture. And that's so cool to think about. And just in a twinkling of an eye, we called back to God. And that might happen this year. I don't know. I can visualize 3 or 4 scenarios of exactly what that would look like. But here's my takeaway of all that. God is watching. He knows what's going on. And when he pulls that trigger and he sends Jesus, Jesus' first time he came here was to save. And his second time to come will be to judge and bring us back. Oh my. You talk about the hope and all the futility of life that seems to happen without God. Oh my. I'll be gone in a twinkling of an eye. Be ready. Gird your loins. Bible sentence. What that means is just get dressed, get ready. Watched a hockey game last night, and they're lacing up their skates, getting ready for battle. Ooh, let's do that. Let's stand. Let's sing.